Imagine you're on a long road trip, you're cruising down the highway, the radio's playing, and you just decide to hit a button and hand over the steering wheel to an autopilot system.
Right, just kick back and relax.
Exactly. You sit back, take your hands off the wheel, and you assume it's taking you straight to, like, a beautiful beach house. But what if that autopilot is actually programmed with a completely different destination?
Like driving you right into a ditch.
Yeah, exactly. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a massive 5-year behavioral study on the daily habits of self-made millionaires, and we're pitting it against a highly critical, really fiery pushback from a viral Reddit thread.
It's a fascinating source stack today. We've got Thomas Corley's Rich Habits workbook, Larry Kendall's Ninja Selling webinar, a Kiplinger interview, a European YouTube breakdown on the architecture of wealth, and, of course, that fierce Reddit debate.
Right, because our mission today is to figure out if success is actually a predictable formula you can hack, or if it's just, a genetic and circumstantial lottery. Because the reality of human biology is that 40% of your day is run entirely on autopilot.
40%, almost half your life.
Yeah. So if you want to know if your autopilot is driving you toward that beach house or toward bankruptcy, you really need to stick around and look under the hood.
For sure. And to truly grasp what separates self-made millionaires from the rest of the population, we first have to understand why human beings do anything automatically. It's not just willpower.
Right, it's biology. The sources bring up this finding from Duke University that totally changes how you view, like, a normal Tuesday. Their researchers found that up to 40% of daily human activities aren't conscious decisions. They're just habits.
We're basically spending almost half our waking lives in zombie mode.
Zombie mode, yeah.
Yeah.
Why does the brain do that?
Well, it comes down to a massive energy crisis happening inside your skull at all times. Your brain only weighs about 3.5 pounds, but it is an absolute energy hog.
Oh, totally.
It consumes 20% of your body's total supply of glucose and oxygen. So if you had to consciously think about every single action, like how to tie your shoes, how to reverse your car, what to eat, your brain would burn through its fuel reserves before noon.
Wow. So if the brain is constantly trying to, stave off this energy crisis, it just outsources the heavy lifting.
Exactly. It takes repetitive tasks and pushes them down into a lower power mode. And that is the function of the basal ganglia. It's this golf ball-sized mass of neurons right near the center of the brain.
The basal ganglia. So how does it actually take over?
When a behavior becomes repetitive, the brain creates a neural pathway linked directly to this area, forming a habit loop. The research breaks it down into 3 parts of cue, which is your trigger, a routine, and a reward.
Like seeing the McDonald's arches, buying the fries, and getting that dopamine hit.
Spot on. And once that pathway is permanently wired, engaging in the routine takes almost zero conscious thought, which means it saves a ton of glucose.
But the timeline to wire that permanently is, it seems really volatile. The London study in our sources says it takes anywhere from 18 to 254 days to build a permanent habit. That is a massive discrepancy.
It is, yeah. But the variance depends entirely on the complexity of the behavior and the friction involved. Drinking a glass of water every morning, that might only take 18 days.
Right, low friction.
But forcing yourself to do a 5-kilometer run after a really exhausting day at work, that has high physical friction. That could take the full 254 days to lock in.
I love the analogy the sources use here. They say building a habit is like building a house. It takes this massive amount of glucose, sweat, and heavy lifting to pour the foundation.
Oh yeah, the construction phase is brutal.
Right. But once the house is built, just living in it requires almost no effort at all. So the big question is, if our brain inherently wants to be lazy, how do we trick it into building a mansion instead of a shack?
Which brings us perfectly to Thomas Corley's Rich Habits study. He wanted to see exactly what was running in the background of highly successful people. So he spent 5 years gathering data on 233 wealthy individuals and 128 poor individuals.
And the craziest part of his methodology is that it was a blind study. The subjects had no idea they were being analyzed for wealth habits.
That blind element is so crucial. Because, if you ask someone, why are you rich or why are you poor, they're almost always going to skew their answers to fit a personal narrative.
Oh, absolutely. To protect their ego.
Exactly. So by doing the interviews under the guise of routine tax and financial planning questions, he bypassed all those defense mechanisms. The data reflects their actual, unfiltered daily behaviors.
And the statistical divide is just stark. Like looking at the wealthy group, 88% dedicate 30 or more minutes a day to self-education, 76% exercise aerobically 4 days a week.
80% focus on a single overarching goal, and they systemically save 10 to 20% of their income.
Yeah, and then conversely, in the lower income group, only 2% read for self-education, 23% do aerobic exercise, and only 12% focus on a single goal.
It's a huge gap. And Corley synthesized this into a concept he calls the habit seesaw.
The habit seesaw.
Yeah. Imagine a seesaw where one side holds your good daily habits and the other holds your bad daily habits. The wealthy subjects weren't flawless machines. They had plenty of bad habits.
Right, they're still human.
Exactly. But they systematically managed their behaviors to tip their seesaw so that more than 50% of their daily actions fell on the positive side.
I really like that because it completely removes the pressure of perfection. You don't have to overhaul your entire personality by tomorrow. And the sources talk about keystone habits, which makes it even more manageable.
Oh, keystone habits are game changers.
I look at them kind of like Pac-Man. You don't need to fix 50 bad habits at once. You just adopt one powerful keystone habit like running every morning. And that running habit acts like Pac-Man, eating up the bad habits.
Because you ran, you naturally want to drink water instead of soda.
Exactly. And because you ran, you might feel too tired to stay up late mindlessly scrolling. Just one foundational habit tips the whole board. And remind the listener, Corley tracked these habits before these people became rich, right?
Yes, the longitudinal data showed these routines were established while they were still middle class or even actively struggling. The wealth didn't buy them the luxury of the habits. The habits laid the foundation for the wealth.
Okay, but wait. Let's look really closely at one of those stats because it seems completely detached from making money. 76% of the wealthy group engaged in aerobic exercise. Why is running or cycling so overwhelmingly tied to self-made millionaires?
It's not about having a six-pack, I can tell you that. The connection is all about a biological software upgrade. Like we said, the brain is an oxygen-hungry organ. Aerobic exercise forces massive amounts of oxygen-rich blood across the blood-brain barrier.
Okay, so a ton of oxygen hits the brain. What does that do?
It acts like a cellular janitorial crew. It sweeps in and cleans up metabolic waste and free radicals that build up during cognitive stress.
So it literally clears the mental fog.
Exactly. But it goes deeper. The sources focus heavily on BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Yeah, they called it miracle grow for the brain, right? Does it actually alter the brain's physical structure?
It structurally alters it.
Yeah.
Aerobic exercise stimulates the release of BDNF, which increases the growth of axon branches. Those are the communicators between your neurons, and it stimulates neurogenesis.
Wait, neurogenesis, like birthing brand new brain cells.
Yes, particularly in the hippocampus, which is the region associated with memory and learning.
Wow. So if your hippocampus is physically growing and your neural pathways are communicating faster just because you did some cardio, you're essentially upgrading your hardware. You can process the data of the real world faster than the competition.
That's the key. A faster, more connected brain spots patterns that others just miss. And this translates directly into what Corley calls opportunity luck.
Opportunity luck, like manufacturing your own good fortune.
Right. Successful people often look like they just stumble into luck, but they're building networks to catch it. For example, 80% of the wealthy group make regular happy birthday calls to their networks, compared to just 11% of the poor group.
So they're constantly maintaining these massive webs of connection, and when you combine a huge network with a brain upgraded by BDNF, they aren't getting lucky. They're biologically primed to spot a good investment the second it appears.
That is the biological argument, yeah. And this is but asserting that just jogging and reading will inevitably lead to millions of dollars really ignores the massive complex realities of society.
Oh, for sure. Which brings us to the Reddit rebellion. The internet did not hold back on this. The viral Reddit thread in our source stack dissects this entire premise with, like, surgical precision.
They really did. The overwhelming consensus from the critics was pointing out the classic scientific trap correlation does not equal causation.
Right. Just because you see a rich person waking up at 5 a.m. to jog doesn't mean waking up at 5 a.m. made them rich.
The Reddit users argued that wealth provides the luxury of free time, access to safe neighborhoods for running, and the physical energy to work out. Because, these individuals aren't exhausted from working 3 minimum wage jobs just to make rent.
It's a really valid point. One of the most striking things from that thread was a user calling this whole industry cargo cult life coaching.
Cargo cults. It's such a profound analogy.
Can you explain that a bit for the listener?
Sure. Historically, cargo cults formed when technologically disconnected societies observed an advanced military building,
Mm.
an airstrip, right? Suddenly, planes full of valuable cargo arrived.
Okay.
Then, after the military left, the locals would build fake dirt airstrips and wooden headsets, mimicking the superficial actions of the soldiers, just hoping the cargo planes would come back.
That's incredible. So applying that to wealth, it's the danger of just copying the superficial actions of successful people without having the underlying substance.
Exactly. It's like a young entrepreneur saying, well, Steve Jobs wore a black turtleneck and he was a billionaire, so if I wear a black turtleneck, I'll be a visionary genius too.
It totally ignores the actual work. The critics are essentially saying that telling a single mother working double shifts to just, think positively and read a book is cargo cult advice. It ignores systemic poverty.
It does. But interestingly, Thomas Corley actually jumped into that exact Reddit thread to defend his work. And his response adds a really critical layer to how we understand the brain.
Oh, I loved this part. He didn't just dismiss their struggles, right?
Yeah, not at all. He introduced this concept of neurological bandwidth. He completely acknowledged the systemic hurdles, but looked at how poverty literally changes the way the brain operates.
So how does that bandwidth actually work?
When someone is constantly stressed about an impending eviction or how to stretch $20 for groceries, their brain is forced into pure survival mode. The amygdala takes over.
Just constantly scanning for immediate threats.
Right. And chronic stress consumes almost all of the brain's available glucose.
Mm-hmm.
You physically and psychologically cannot formulate a 10-year investment strategy when your brain is redlining just to survive until Friday.
So poverty itself is a cognitive tax. It steals the energy you need to build those foundational habits.
Exactly. Corley argues that escaping this cycle requires a brutal, almost unfair amount of discipline. His data shows that to expand that bandwidth, you have to carve out just 30 to 60 minutes, usually early in the morning, before the chaos starts to deliberately build new skills.
It's an immense hurdle. But he's framing it as the necessary wedge to break the cycle. And he also breaks down the paths to wealth, which I think grounds this nicely. It's not all overnight tech billionaires.
So he identified 4 paths: the big company climber, the virtuoso, the entrepreneur dreamer, and the saver investor.
And the saver investor path is the most statistically accessible for the average person, right?
It is, but it requires a staggering amount of time. The data shows it takes an average of 32 years of consistent discipline, saving about 20% of your income to reach multi-million-dollar status that way.
32 years. So I have to push back a bit here. Is this just survival bias? Are we just looking at the lottery winners who saved for 32 years and assuming their morning coffee routine is what bought the winning ticket?
It's a fair question. To synthesize the sources neutrally, systemic hurdles and luck are undeniably real factors in your trajectory. But, as Larry Kendall points out in his Ninja Selling Principles, you can't control the macroeconomic climate.
Right.
You can't control the privilege you were born into. Your daily routine, what you do at 6 a.m., is literally the only variable entirely within your control.
So whether you lean towards systemic skepticism or personal responsibility, the challenge becomes really practical. How do you sustain 32 years of discipline without burning out?
Because willpower alone is going to fail.
Definitely. We have to go back to the basal ganglia. We have to figure out how to manipulate our environment so that the 40% of our day spent in zombie mode is working for us, not against us.
And that ties into Jim Rohn's formula for failure from the Larry Kendall webinar. It totally demystifies why we self-sabotage.
Yeah, failure isn't this cataclysmic event. You don't just wake up on a Tuesday and ruin your life. Failure is just a few minor errors in judgment repeated every single day because it doesn't seem to matter in the short term.
The danger is in the timeline of the consequences. Bad habits offer an immediate dopamine reward, but the consequence is delayed for years.
Like eating junk food. Instant comfort, but the health issues don't show up for decades.
Exactly. Good habits are the exact opposite. They require immediate pain and friction, but the benefit is delayed.
So since our brain wants to avoid pain and conserve energy, we have to engineer our surroundings. We have to optimize for the starting line.
Reduce the friction for the good stuff.
Right. If you want to build a reading habit, put the book directly on your pillow so you literally have to move it to sleep. If you want to exercise, sleep in your gym clothes.
And add massive friction to the bad habits. Don't rely on willpower to stay off social media. Use an app blocker that scrambles your passwords. Make it cost too much brain energy to execute the bad habit.
There are some great frameworks for this biological loophole, too, like Robin Sharma's 90-91 rule. For 90 days, spend the first 90 minutes on your top priority.
And Jerry Seinfeld's calendar method.
Oh, the chain method.
Yeah. His only goal was to write one joke a day. Yeah. Every day he put a massive red X on a wall calendar. His whole philosophy was just don't break the chain.
Biologically, that calendar is totally hacking the habit loop. The red X is a low-energy visual dopamine hit. It gives the brain the immediate reward it craves.
The chain itself becomes the reward, so you don't need immense conscious motivation to write.
I mean, look at your phone right now. How many apps are engineered by behavioral scientists to steal your time while you're in that autopilot zombie mode? The Learning Rocket YouTube source has this incredible analogy for it.
The Euro Army, right?
Yes. Think of your time and your money as your personal troops. If you're a sloppy general letting your troops sleep in, scroll social media, and blow resources on impulse buys, you are systematically executing your own army.
It's a harsh way to look at it, but it's true.
Rich habits are just the military drills. They train your troops to stay focused, multiply, and capture territory every single day, even when you aren't actively watching them.
Reframing your time and money as deployable soldiers really forces you to evaluate the opportunity cost of every minor daily decision.
It really does. We have mapped out some vast territory today. From the energy-hoarding basal ganglia and the neurogenesis sparked by a morning run to the fierce, highly valid debates over neurological bandwidth and systemic privilege.
And ultimately, we've seen that dream setting really begins with a harsh audit of your immediate reality. Look at what you actually did today.
Right. Did the minor decisions tip your habit seesaw in a positive direction, or did you just let the basal ganglia choose the path of least resistance?
It's definitely something to reflect on.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over. The author James Clear is quoted in our sources saying, "Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement." But he follows that up with a really stark warning. Never miss twice.
Missing one day is an accident.
Exactly. Missing one day is just a human accident, but missing 2 days, that is the biological start of a brand new neural pathway.
The new habit.
So think about the autopilot currently driving your life. What is one minor error in judgment you let slide today, assuming it didn't matter, that is secretly compounding against your future? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you wake up tomorrow ready to optimize your starting line. Take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you next time.